Okay, whatever.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Taylor, and I advocate for the ill and disabled and elderly. And I do have a great thing for the county to start doing, and that is to get their courts in order with probate. The attorneys in New Jersey have so nicely put in the New Jersey Law Magazine in August of 2010. I'll read. Determining reasonable fees. An applicant for fees shall discuss the financial circumstances of both the incapacitated person and the plaintiff in determining whether fees should be awarded. Of course, the financial need of the incapacitated person will affect the size of the fees awarded. For example, if the incapacitated person requires placement in an assisted living facility that does not take Medicaid, that person will need to preserve his or her assets more than an incapacitated person who requires placement in a nursing home and who will qualify for Medicare. There's a problem with this. If a family member took a dime of a person's money before they were put in a nursing home for 5 years back, that person would be disqualified for Medicaid. But here it's saying the judge will determine how they'll pay attorneys. And they'll give them better fees if he thinks he can pass this on to the taxpayer. And that is the state of New Jersey and the county, because Frank Guzzo said to me one day, I get them when they're done with them in the courts. And this is the ill, disabled, and elderly. While there are times when fees cannot be paid until one or more of the incapacitated person's assets are sold, the attorney should consider asking for the fees to be paid by the guardian within a given number of days, for example, 45 days from the date of the judgment is signed. It is not uncommon for it to take a while for the plaintiff's attorney to obtain the bond, but the guardian may also dawdle somewhat in getting qualified, making the payment of the fees to physicians or a physician and psychologists who perform the examinations and attorneys a priority within a reasonable time frame is fair to all. It's not fair if a judge is saying, Mrs. Andrews, you were going to make that guardianship cost $500. We've decided, because we think you've got a lot more money, we're going to make it $100,000. Something's wrong here, and I beg the surrogate to look into this, because they should really be auditing all these files across the state. Then what I think is interesting is if a guardian is a family member and then they go an advocate and say these fees are way too high. This is what they suggest. With regard to payment by the court-appointed guardian, the author suggests that the judgment state not only the amount to be paid to each attorney and physician, but also that each be paid within a given number of days, such as 60 days. This encourages the guardian to promptly obtain a bond and make payments ordered by the court. The duty of the guardian of the estate is to locate assets of the incapacitated person and pay his or her creditors. That means all the bills they ran up in the court, that maybe even the guardianship's a total sham. In the event that the guardian does not make timely payments, the author has contacted court-appointed counsel regarding the issue and asked the attorney to intercede. If the payments still are not forthcoming, the court-appointed counsel can be asked to report this failure to the court and have the guardian discharged for failure to perform his or her duties. So basically they're suggesting that if family members say, time out here, these fees are excessive, that they go to the court and they threaten to remove that person, even though that person is the best person for that family member. If it's a spouse, they're going to threaten them. The courts are cleaning out people clear across the country. But I suggest every person that has an elderly parent or a disabled family member to go on a website called Stop Guardianship Abuse. Type in Stop Guardianship Abuse blog, it will come up. Click on it today. In another state, Senator Black was advocating for a gentleman named Bob Queer, where what they did is they went in and Adult Protective Services in that state went and got the gentleman without the family knowing, put him under guardianship, and then sold everything he owned. They even gave away his war medals. The gentleman is devastated, and this particular senator finally stood up for somebody in the United States and said, what are we doing here? Everybody should look at this and call the freeholders and say, we need you to start advocating in Union County, because it not only brings dignity to these families that there's people disabled or elderly, and one day I'm going to become elderly myself and I want to be treated like a human being. I don't want to be somebody just knocking at my door like I have an orange armband on me and taking everything I have. Whether it's police, whether it's protective services, whether it's the prosecutor's office, making assertions and decisions that they may not be qualified to make. This is what happened to this man. It took this family a year and a half to find out everything that was going on. And the senator said on the tape today that the man, if you ask him a word, he can spell it backwards to him. But they've broken this man's spirit because they sold everything. They sold all the pictures. They dismantled his family pictures. They sold his cars. And the two things that stood out in this video today were that the senator asked the conservator guardian / guardian, whatever, the professional one, I'll pay you $1,500 for this man's pickup truck. And they sold it to their friend for $600. There was a receipt for a $2,200 item, and they sold it to their friend for $200. This is the illegal transfer of assets. It's happening in every state across the country. It's happening in Union County. There's been cases reported, and my suggestion is everybody keep reporting and reporting and reporting it, because this has got to stop. It's getting to the point where it's egregious, but I find that it's rather egregious that attorney Brenda, how would you pronounce her? McGilley. She put in the New Jersey Law magazine in 2010 how they're defrauding the government. She's admitting judges are doing this in New Jersey. We've got a problem. Chris Christie, I'm still waiting for that phone call. I'm waiting it from the Attorney General's office. I'm waiting it from the FBI. I'm waiting because if a senator could step up in another state and say this is egregious. And he took this gentleman, he wasn't even a constituent of his. That was the first thing he said. He is not my constituent, but the man had a heart. And I think in the United States we're losing that heart. We're losing that heart and soul. And that's the reason county budgets are out of control, because just bring your friends on. We don't have to. Mr. Mirabella and all of the freeholders, we don't want to fight with you. We just want answers. We want to be treated with dignity, just like the ill, disabled, and elderly do. But this, I think, there is enough information here for a full investigation through the state. This was in law journals published in the state of New Jersey. What is going on here? And remember that movie, Win-Win, it's being advertised on Channel 5, Channel 4, Channel 7. So it's coming to a movie theater near you. And you'll see, they said, you know, it was a scam. $1,500. Chairman Scanlon, I know you didn't really like what I had to say at the last freeholders meeting about this, but I challenge the freeholders to be people with hearts, to do the right thing, and to say we need to open up an investigation. Our prosecutor's office should be involved in it. People's money and life savings should not be taken. Let me give one more example. Marie Long in Arizona. Her husband was a veteran. Do you know if your husband or your spouse was a veteran? A guardian will cost you $75. They took $1.3 million from her. How did it happen? How did it happen? How did the Veterans Administration let that happen to someone that went to war for us, fought for our freedom, and now people in this country are looking the other way because it's not their problem. It could be your problem tomorrow. Please have a heart and soul. Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to go a little bit further with developments in the area of reforming abusive practices in guardianship proceedings. Right now, as we speak, in Arizona, there's a bill on their floor or about to be introduced for voting, HB 2424, which is attempting to put a cap on fees associated with guardianship proceedings of $5,000, and also to try to put more of an objective methodology in selecting the court-appointed physician who is supposed to make a medical ruling on the nature of a person's disability and the degree of which they have a lack of capacity or are deemed incompetent. A lot of times in these cases there is a conflict of interest between the court-appointed physician going along with the opinion of the court-appointed physician to get the fees, and they don't care about what happens to the ward. Long story short, this bill, HB 2424 in Arizona, if and when it's passed, and we hope it is passed, it could serve as a model for the rest of the country to start legislative reform in the area of guardianship proceedings. New Jersey needs to do this. They need to step up to the plate. There's too many people's lives are being destroyed, families are being destroyed, people are going into foreclosure, they're losing all of their assets, they're losing their dignity, as Mary Ellen said. That gentleman in Iowa, he was a Korean veteran, and they took his Bible, which had his family genealogy, pictures of his mother, his father, priceless pictures which will never be replaced. They also took what's called, he was a paratrooper in Korean War, they took his jump log, which is stating where you jump from, the plane you jump from, and the mission, reason. That's priceless information to a veteran. And they just took it, and it's going to be sold at a flea market. These people have no idea of the value of it. And we're not a throwaway society. This is illegal, it's immoral, it's wrong. So I hope that the New Jersey legislators who are watching this, or maybe will be asked to watch this, Senator Bob Menendez, Senator Tom Kean, I have phone calls into both of your offices to try and meet with you to discuss practical, effective methods of reforming guardianship proceedings to lower the costs of healthcare fraud, eliminate healthcare fraud, and also to make it a more fair and equitable process. This is a very large voting bloc that we're talking about. The disabled are 54 million in America. Those people age 62 and above in this country is about 70 million, and it's one of the fastest growing segments of our population, and we're living longer. So these are people who are going to vote for you or against you. So think about it. Liz, I know you're the scheduling person for Senator Kean. I have a detailed email to you, and I would appreciate it if you return my phone call so I could meet with Senator Kean to discuss this further. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I have one more thing. We have a tape where two attorneys said the reason my husband, Matthew, who was just speaking, could not speak in the courtroom is because Judge Malone wouldn't be able to bring down a guardianship on him. At maximum, he could bring down a limited guardianship, and we had a power of attorney and healthcare proxy, so the whole thing is fraudulent. They drug us through the courts for a year, turned our whole family's life upside down, and we still are experiencing the residual from this. My husband is not a free man. I challenge the freeholders to take this tape to Judge Malone and to the prosecutor and say, how was this gentleman put under a guardianship? I challenge them, like Senator Black did for a gentleman, that his war medals, they found out, were sold in a flea market. That is just deplorable. The United States government should be all over that judge, that adult services in that state. This is just deplorable. And like Senator Black said, we are not throwaways. But it seems in this day and age, our politicians have lost their moral compass. It's not the people they're interested in, it's having a party with their friends. And this is too important to have a party with your friends. You need to step up and show that you're an honorable person that went into politics or became a freeholder because you're there for the people. And the people that need you most are the most vulnerable. And I'll never forget the night that Frank Guzzo told me, I get them after the court's done with them. Well, this in itself, what I read to you tonight, the family, even if that grandmother wrote for someone to go to college because she didn't realize she was going to get sick, do you know she wouldn't qualify for Medicaid? So she saves every shekel she has, and you get to a courthouse, and the judge can give away $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 to attorneys that don't deserve it. This is a racket. And then who's picking all of that up is you and I. We're saying, why are our taxes going through the roof? Chris Christie, give me a call. I've got a great place for you to start cleaning up. But the problem is, Chris, this gentleman that started this issue, you made him the Hunterdon County prosecutor. I wrote you a letter. I wrote the judiciary a letter. My husband signed it. I signed it saying why we felt there needed to be an investigation before you allowed that gentleman to be a prosecutor. This isn't about taking care of your friends. This is about taking care of your constituents. Making America an honorable, decent place for people to be. Is everyone going to fear that if they become disabled, ill, or elderly? We've got orange armbands flagged for them to be taken into the courts or adult protective services. Tell you what, we experienced it one night, a knock at the door with that. They weren't sure that my child could live with my husband because he's disabled. And I laughed. I said, what took you so long? 14 years later? And they looked at me. I said, what took you so long? People that were coming to do asset transfer of our money because they decided to target our family, to take our assets and to try to sell our house and get a hold of all our assets. My husband was only 47 years old, so if you think you're too young, you're never too young for this to happen to you. Thank you.